Hey, what's up? Welcome back, Sabscribers. It's your girl Sab here again with another episode of Suffering of Silence. And this is part two of I'm the prize, not a possession. So I wanted to obviously pick up where I left off last and just talk a little bit more about ways in which the mental manipulation kind of transpired and eventually became more physical. And like I said, I want to make sure that everyone understands that there are always resources available. I will make sure to link all of that in the show notes. But again, I want to make sure I reemphasize on those resources that we do have, and that is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. They're available in various different languages. You can call them at 800-799-7233, or you can text the word begin to 88788. And you can also go to their website, thehotline.org, and you can actually chat with someone live. Again, I've personally used those resources myself as well as like local resources for me. So I have a few topics that I have lined up here, and I want to make sure I try to get through most of them. This episode might be a lot longer than last week's episode, but we'll get through what we can. So, I tell these stories because it's supposed to be an explanation of like how someone is manipulating you and utilizing your insecurities as like exploiting your insecurities, I should say. And I guess that's the easiest way I can even say it. So things that I feel like I should have noticed early on in this relationship was just how he would treat other women, like how he would talk about his exes and whatnot. And I know I don't speak very highly of my exes either, but ultimately when I explain my stories and I tell people my experiences, it's not because I'm trying to I'm not trying to make my exes look like terrible people. My intention is to just explain that this was the situation that I've experienced and been through. And ultimately, I will always say, I went through what I went through with them for a reason, unfortunately. Like, it may not have been a great experience whatsoever, but I went through those experiences because there were lessons in those experiences that I needed to learn that I may not have ever learned unless I lived through it. And like what we had is what we had, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that it was special or that it was amazing, because I know that the love of my life isn't going to treat me the way that my exes have treated me, you know? Obviously, I will never settle for those same things ever again. But just to think about the fact that I have to accept that I went through those experiences to get me to who I am today. And I have to accept that. And that's a part of the shadow work that I had to go through. And for so long, I did hate myself for allowing myself to overlook so many situations that the current version of myself would never accept ever. And future me may not accept some of the decisions that I make now, but I'm living for myself at this moment. So yeah, don't want to get too far off on a tangent with that, but some of the things that I should have noticed early on were just the way that he would treat other women and how he would talk about them. There was a mutual person in our, well, I mean, apparently he sort of very casually had something going on with her. I had no idea, and she and I also had a lot of mutual close friends. And I mean, I didn't really consider her someone that I would say was a close friend of mine. We just ran in very similar crowds, and I had a lot of love and respect for her, and we were in very similar creative spaces sometimes. And I used to beat myself up for the fact that I should have stood up for her more, and I probably should have even approached her as a woman, as a friend, to understand the situation between the two of them. But again, I know I try to pride myself now that I've become a better girl's girl, because I wasn't that back then. I was literally so selfish back then. I wasn't always the best women for women, and it's all about growth. It's all about progressing. So I've learned from my mistakes that, yeah, I probably should have brought that situation up to her as a woman rather than just kind of taking a back seat on things. And however things transpired between the two of them, I just always thought that was none of my business. You know what I mean? And I mean, technically it isn't, but for him to have put me in the situation, I should have handled it differently and better. Especially the way that he would talk about her and like disrespect her. Because bottom line is, just the way that he would talk about her was just beyond disrespectful. And I should have realized that is just how he feels about women. Like he just hated women. And it was a very intense situation that shouldn't have gone as far as it did. And I also wanted to talk about like just having experienced, like, I probably didn't take enough time between my last relationship and my relationship with him because, my last relationship, I was going through a lot of, like, I was experiencing a lot of the harassment and the stalking, and I didn't, I, I can obviously see now that he was using that situation with my stalker as a way to exploit me and like use it against me throughout the entirety of our relationship. Like there wasn't a time in which he did not bring that up. Like there wasn't a time in which he did not try to use that as a reason to hurt me. Like there was an incident where we went to like a public event, a public situation, and we ran into my stalker, and I was already not in the best of moods because I was just so ready to leave the festival. And I'm trying to walk back to the car, and he was driving. So he had the keys. So we get to the car, and we're already like, there's already tension between us because he saw my stalker, and I asked him, I've had to ask him numerous times to not like try to attack my ex if we see him. I've had to ask him to leave him alone because like I didn't want the situation to be worse. Like if he didn't try to empathize or understand my point of view of how I needed to handle the stalker situation. And having a restraining order in place, I cannot I cannot risk any sort of situation happening on my behalf, and it's then entirely canceling out this restraining order because I need that to be in place legally. And there were, not to get off on a tangent, but just for anyone else that needs to know, in the state of Wisconsin, restraining orders don't necessarily protect you. It's more if the person is physically in your face, like basically about to fuck you up type shit. That's the only time in which like you can even call the police and they can actually action things. Or like, let's say you can prove that this person, it's all about having the proof that this person is violating the restraining order. So there were many occasions in which like I couldn't prove the fact that my stalker was violating the restraining order, but there were many times in which it was pretty obvious that he was. And my abuser would exploit that because he would not try to understand like the way the rules and the laws worked in with the restraining order, and he would try to take that into his own hands. And I don't know if it's just a sense of, well, it's obviously because he wanted some sense of control over situations that he had no control over. And that was nothing to do with me, obviously. That's something to do with him personally. And I always felt like I I continued to have to set these boundaries with him and continued to have to explain to him like where he needs to stop and like allow me to handle it in the ways that I can cope with it. Because at the same time, this is also traumatizing for me to go through a stalker situation and to have the one person that's so intimately close to me not even be able to respect my boundaries in the situation is kind of, it just adds more trauma and disrespect and just hurt to the situation. And I understand, like, he might have been coming from a really good place, or like his intention may have been to genuinely protect me, but at the same time, I I think in any situation, if you're trying to protect someone, you have to also understand that they have to allow that to happen in the first place, right? And I just wasn't in a place in which I felt comfortable enough putting that weight on him. Um, and also, like, it's not really like, I personally didn't see that as something that I needed to put on anyone else but myself. And because it's my baggage, it's my baggage to carry, no one else's. And that's just how I looked at it. And I think, I mean, I still feel that way too, you know? So, um, and even to talk about like my stalker situation, like my abuser would literally, eventually add him on, like, they would add each other on social media and even exchange messages about me and like basically share war stories about me. And I'm like, okay, so that proves to me that I'm supposed to trust you, that your intention is to protect me when you're literally associating with the ops. Like, what? That was crazy. That was nuts. Now that I think about it, like, I almost even forgot that for a while. Um but yeah, so in this situation, we ran into my stalker, and I'm like darting, trying to get out of this place, trying to get to the car and get the fuck home. And my abuser was not trying to do that, and he was trying to like fight him and start a whole situation. I'm like, that is the stupidest thing ever, because we're literally in the middle of like Bastille days, and there's cops everywhere, there's people everywhere. That's not going to be a smart choice. And even then, like, I don't want you to fight him. I never wanted you to fight him. He's gonna get what he deserves without me doing anything. Like, nothing. I don't need to do anything. This guy's going to get his karma for what he's done to me. And that's just how I look at things, right? And he may not feel that. He didn't feel that way, obviously, but that's not his place to make that choice. It's not his place to make that decision. And there comes the God complex. The like, the way that he thinks that he's in control, like he can just manipulate every situation into the outcome that he wants. Those were things I should have noticed and just completely been the reason that I should have let him go sooner. But I obviously wasn't in the right place, right, not the right state of mind, nothing. So I couldn't really process that, you know what I mean? And um, so we get to the car, whatever, and like we're arguing and stuff like that, and I'm getting in the passenger seat, and at this time, like, I have like an SUV, right? And he was driving, like I said. And I'm trying to get in the car, and he keeps shoving me out the car. Like, he's literally pushing me out the car, and he starts driving off. He's trying to like pull off, and he keeps shoving me, and I'm holding on to the car. Like, I'm literally hanging out the fucking door. Like, half my body is hanging out the fucking car. He keeps pushing me up until like I'm literally gripping onto the floor of the car. Like, I'm trying to hold on. I'm hanging out the fucking door. And yeah, okay, he wasn't like driving at like some 30 miles an hour, like he wasn't going fast because he's pulling out of the parking garage. But the fact that you're still moving the fucking car and trying to kick me out my own fucking car is crazy. Um, but yeah, like he would, like, that moment should have been the moment that I should have been like, I'm done with you, like, get the fuck out of my life. Because for you to not give a for you to be that pressed about my situation, or just to be that mad at me and to not give a fuck so much that you would be willing to risk my fucking life and like, bro, you were basically trying to kill me at that point. You know what I mean? Like, that was crazy. Like, I have never been in a situation where I'm like, that was the only time I've ever been in a situation like that. I mean, and that was very early on in our relationship. He took my car and he was like threatening to crash my shit, like, da 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 da. And I'm like, it was just a whole ordeal. And eventually, as I start to like share, like, as I start to talk to like my best friend about these things and like catch up with my best friend, um, like my best friend would confront him about it. I honestly don't know if it was like he reached out to her or if she reached out to him, but either way, him and my best friend got into it real bad. Like, it was to the point where he even threatened my best friend, like, and my best friend was not fucking playing about that shit. She was not playing about me. She was like, bro, like, you need to stop putting your hands on my friend because, bro, like, she's fucking tiny. This guy's not a small guy. Like, well, when I met him, he was like 160. And at the end of the relationship, he was like 2 something. So he's not a small guy. And I'm 100 pounds on a good day, okay? On a bad day, I'm like 90 something. And I'm a very tiny fucking person. And my best friend just like, obviously she's defending me because she's my fucking best friend. And she's like, you need to stop putting your hands on my friend. Like that shit could get real bad, bro. Like, you need to leave her the fuck alone. Like, they were going back and forth for a while, and it got to the point where he threatened her, which then flipped things even worse. And there were many times where like he would start using so he would use a lot of my friends, like especially my best friend, he would kind of use them, weaponize them as ways to like manipulate me. Like, he would tell me how he's like, because he would often go out and he would often, like, I wasn't allowed. I honestly, I never knew the nightlife until like last year, until I was 28. I didn't know what going out was. I didn't know where clubs, bars, I didn't know none of that shit. Okay, I barely got to go to bars when I was younger. I was only ever allowed to go out to the bars with like one of my friends. Shout out Juju. Love you, Ju. I was only ever allowed to go out with Ju, and I feel like it was because Ju wasn't a straight Ju is not a straight woman who attracts men, and Ju and he also knew that I wasn't, like, I didn't swing that way, like I would never date a woman, and so that was the only reason I was allowed to hang out with you. And also I think it's because like I also feel like it's because he was probably afraid of Jew too. So I don't know. But basically, I feel like I was only ever allowed to hang out with Jew because of those reasons. And also, he knew Jew a little bit more than any of my other friends. And, but yeah, I was only ever allowed to go out with Jew. And we only went to like very specific spots. And that was it. Like, if I would go out with my best friend, like he thinks like he would call my best friend a hoe. He would call her all types of shit. And like he would plant these like things in my mind and say like and tell me how like, oh yeah, when I was out I heard that your best friend be talking all this shit, talking about you was the one that was doing all X, Y, and Z with so and so and so and so. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even do anything. I'm like, bro, I barely look people in the eyes anymore because he manipulated me mentally to such an extent that I was afraid to look up. Like, I was afraid to look people in the eyes. I was afraid to, like, I was afraid to do anything. Like, it was crazy. Like, when I say that, like, I don't mean to say it dramatically or get emotional about it, but like, even when we could just be going to the grocery store, right? And like, there was a time we went to the grocery store and there was just a random ass guy. I don't even know what this guy looked like. I didn't even see this fucking man's face. And he was like, he starts freaking out on me and saying like, you was looking at dude, you was looking down there, and he's like, that looks like your ex. And he basically had beef with all of my exes. My high school ex he was referring to in this situation. And it's crazy because Like, I mean, he wasn't necessarily wrong in certain situations, but he also didn't understand the dynamic of certain things in my life. And like, he wasn't wrong. Like, I mean, I felt like it was weird that my family was still friends with my ex, but I also get the fact that, like, you know, my ex was essentially like we were friends before we ever dated. And like, that was the intention, anyways, was like I wanted to remain friends with my ex because we went through a lot of shit, and like, I'm always gonna look out. I always wanted to look out for him. Even though shit kind of got weird at the end of the whole thing, like, I always wanted the best for him. And like, my family always looked out for him. And he was basically like like, my dad basically took him in as like, and considered him like a son to him. So I know, like, that's really difficult, and like, that's really hard for you to come into a relationship with someone who has that ex, right? But that's just what it was. And it's not like I had any romantic feelings for this person. And I also didn't speak to this person for fucking years. And he was very like, so basically, we're at the grocery store and he claims that that was my ex. And I'm like, I don't even fucking know because I didn't even look at this guy in the face whatsoever. I'm like, um, I'm just like, it was almost like he was trying to test his control over me and trying to figure out whether or not he had me manipulated enough to not even look at anyone. Like, it was like he was trying to test whether I was still under his control and I was still insecure about myself. Like, I guess that would be the way I could look at it now. Like, he literally was like, you just want to act like you just want to protect him. You know that was your ex. Like, you're trying to fucking play me. And like, I'm like, bro, I don't even know that man. I don't even know who the fuck that was. I didn't even look at this person in the face. Like, I'm telling you, even when I wasn't with him, like, I was so terrified to look up at anyone. I never looked anyone in the eyes. I never spoke to anyone. Like, I was so afraid all the time because I'm like, he had built this, like, he had projected his paranoia onto me because he would think that everyone in the city is talking about him. And like, he would say like, yeah, people are saying that you and your friends be out here doing some hoe shit. And he's like, everybody out here talking about how you be cheating on me and you be fucking with other dudes and how you da 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 da, and like, you just a fucking groupie hoe. And I'm like, what, bro? Like, groupie hoe is crazy because I don't even talk to nobody I don't even talk to anybody in those scenes. I don't talk to anyone at all. Okay. And like, just to prove a point of like, that I don't talk to anyone, like, I literally stopped talking to people. I literally blocked people. I literally blocked my friends because I had I had a friend who literally replied to my Snap story of him sleeping, and we would troll each other while we're sleeping. And I posted on my story, and my guy friend literally swiped up and put laughing emojis. And he's like, "Who the fuck is snapping you at 2 in the morning?" And I'm like, "Bro, if you literally look at the snap, it's about you." Like, he had me so manipulated, thinking that everyone in the city was talking shit about him, talking shit about me, calling me all types of hoes, this, that, and the third, and saying how I'm out here cheating on him. And I'm like, yo, I'm not even talking to anyone. I don't even have fucking friends at this point. Like, it was so bad. Like, it was so bad. And he would say how my exes were talking shit about me and saying how I'm just a basic bitch, and like, you ain't shit, like, you just a basic bitch, and like, nobody gives a fuck that much. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't care. Like, I'm not the one asking for their opinion. I just found it crazy to me that like I just find it crazy to me that someone who wanted to be so much in the public eye and wanted to be famous and wanted to be a star and be a rapper, how he could not even handle rumors or gossip. How he let that affect him so fucking much. And in reality, he was just making those things up because nobody was fucking talking about you that fucking much, bro. Like, you are not that fucking relevant. And he would hate on motherfuckers that were essentially bigger than him, like people that were, because there were a decent amount of like musicians or rappers that were kind of making a name for themselves in from the city, and he would just like hate on them and like talk shit about them and say how they're all phony and they're all fake. And it also got to the point where he like I'm going to get into more of that later in the episode, but just to kind of keep on track with like explaining some of the manipulation that he would do, and like he would project so much of his paranoia and his fears onto me that like I wasn't even allowed to like interact with his friends. Like I couldn't even make jokes with his friends. I couldn't laugh. I couldn't speak to his friends. So anytime anyone was around, I would have to look down and not say anything. And it was like it wasn't always the case. So early in the relationship, he would bring me around his friends, and like I would interact with him, obviously from the last episode and the stories that I told there. And there was a time where there were a few times in which I actually got to go out with him and his friends. And there obviously were other girls there too. So there were a few times in which I actually got to go out with them, and like I'd be basically like I don't know, like they would talk to me and stuff, and like there was like a time where one of his friends had asked me about a situation, well, basically about the baby situation, about the pregnancy, and I was just like, oh, no, don't really want to talk about it, but yeah, obviously I'm here, I'm drinking, right? Like I'm not pregnant. And so he saw that interaction. We're all standing there in a group. And so he saw that interaction, and when we left that spot, we all like went to go get something to eat, and he starts freaking out on me and like arguing with me and treating me like I'm not shit because I answered his friend's question. Because I answered his fucking friend's question. And he's like, why the fuck are you being so friendly? What the fuck is your problem? And I'm like, bro, your friend asked me a question about the baby. What do you want me to fucking say? Like, you're the one who let that even be a topic of discussion by fucking posting that all over fucking social media. But even if you didn't do that, like, what is so fucking wrong about me saying maybe 10 words to your friend? And I wasn't even the one who initiated the conversation in the first fucking place. And if I was, how am I fucking wrong for that? How am I fucking wrong for that? Like, I remember times in which, like, I would just crack a joke in front of, while, like, we're all together. And, like, that was so wrong. That was so wrong of me to do. Like, there were so many occasions in which, like, as we get deeper into the relationship, like, it just got to a point where I just stopped talking. Like I just wouldn't say anything. And he had a producer that he worked with very frequently, and his producer had like some history with my best friend, and that also became like a whole drama of its own. And like he would get upset because his producer and I um well, his producer like reached out to me or added me like on Snapchat and like Facebook, and like would message me on some like, yo, you need to watch your back with him because he's literally just brainwashing you, and like he's just telling me like I need to get out of that situation. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and because he had me so manipulated, I immediately, like, even before he even messaged me, I screenshotted like him adding me and stuff, and like I sent it to my abuser, and I'm like, yo, like you need to see like what is going on, like why would he add me? And so he would log into like my social medias. He had all of my social media like logins and passwords and everything. Like he changed all of that shit. Like he was controlling all of it. And so he'd message his old producer that was my friend, and we're no longer friends because he was like, they're getting into it. And then this other producer now, so basically he would just like message him, and they're like arguing on my fucking page, like across all social medias, and it was just some crazy shit. And like bro was like, before before he even could get his hands on my messages, like his producer like sent me like voice messages basically saying like you need to leave them, or like sending me messages basically saying like you need to leave him because he's just manipulating you, he's just brainwashing you, like bro, that he needs to get help, like you need to stay away from him because this is like he's just gonna fuck you up, like I don't know what's really going on in your relationship, but like he's crazy, like you need to leave him alone. And like he's seen some of the stuff that's gone down between us, like even very early on. um he's seen some of the abusive things that he would do to me. And he never like jumped in and interjected because like I'm pretty sure he was either afraid or like he just felt like it just wasn't his place to. But once he finally did step up and like say something, like it was kind of too late. Like at this point, like we were together for like a year or so. So they had that falling out, and like they're going back and forth, and eventually like they stop arguing. And like he would do things like he would put me on camera and record me. Basically, when I listen to some of those videos and like some of those recordings, like yo, like it was crazy because he'd be like, so motherfuckers is out here saying that I'm manipulating you and I'm controlling you and I'm doing like I'm holding you hostage and da 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 da. And I was like, he's like, am I doing that? Am I doing that? And it just sounds like he's intimidating me to say the answer that he wants me to say. And I'm like I think like a year ago I had found one of those videos, and I was literally breaking down in tears because I'm like, yo, I literally sound so fucking afraid. Like, you may not be able to tell, but like, I can see it in myself that like like me in those videos was not me for real. Like, that was literally me saying what I thought would save my life. Like, I literally was saying shit just because I was scared that like, what else am I supposed to say? You're literally putting me on the fucking spot and intimidating me. Like, you think I'm gonna say, yes, he is. He's holding me hostage. He's abusing me. He's like, I'm not gonna just fucking say that shit because that could result in something even more unsafe for myself. You know what I mean? Like, how fucking crazy. Like, just imagine hearing that. Like, imagine listening to yourself, your past self, like being essentially interrogated and intimidated to say what you thought was the best thing to say to keep yourself safe. Like, man, that shit was crazy. So it was just every little thing that he could try to exploit me on, like he would do. He would project these insecurities of like he always tried to make me feel like I wasn't good enough for him, obviously. And he would always try to like project the fact that like I know I'm not a fucking conventional baddie. Like I know I'm not no fucking conventional baddie. I don't I don't ever like I'm not stupid to that. Like that's just not who I am, and I don't ever want to be. Like I go to the gym because I do want a fat ass. I'm just kidding. But like I know I wasn't blessed or born with that naturally, and he would like try to convince me to like get a BBL or like get like to enhance my features, and he would just basically make me feel like shit for not looking like a conventional baddie. And he would tell me how he's like, yeah, motherfuckers always telling me why, like how come you don't, why would you be with her when she's not even that cute? You could have a baddie, like you should have a baddie. If you gonna be a rapper, you need to have that image. Like you need to have, she don't even got the image to be with you. Like, well, if I could actually be myself, like I'm a fucking baddie. I'm a fucking baddie. Okay, I'm a baddie in my own right. But it's like he would always plant these little things in my head to make me compare myself to someone who is more conventionally beautiful, or someone who is more like society, like he would compare me to societal standards of like what a rapper's girlfriend should be, rather than accepting me for like exactly who I am, because like that should never change. You knew me as who I was then, and when you met me, like then that's who you should have been willing to accept. And he would just make me feel like shit for not looking the part. And when I would try to like be myself more and like express myself through the way I dress, and even that was an issue. Like I couldn't, like there were days where like okay, sometimes like I just want to fucking wear makeup, or sometimes I just want to dress nicely because I want to feel good. I want to feel good about myself. I want to dress and express myself in the way that I'm dressing. And that's, I mean, because that's always been who I am. Like I've always expressed myself through my style, through my clothing, through my clothing, through my clothing, and like that was always who I've been. And I wasn't allowed to do that. Like I I wasn't allowed to even go to like anything in the artistic spaces. Like I couldn't go to shows or performances, or like even his shows or performances. Like I never got to go because he said that wasn't a space for me. Like I didn't belong there. I didn't, he would tell me like that's not a place that you need to be because these people are fake. All the Milwaukee motherfuckers is fake. And he's like, you don't need to be in those spaces. And I'm like, but like, what if I wanted to support you? Like, I can't even do that. But even if it wasn't that, it's just like, I get it. Like, some people, I get it. Like, you can look like a groupie bitch. I get it. I'm not, I'm not saying that he was wrong for that thought. But at the same time, like, um, there were times in which like I helped in creating opportunities for him in certain places, not in Milwaukee or anything, but larger markets, larger parts of the world, I'll say. And there was a time where like all I did was like I just wanted to look nice, right? Like it's like, it's been a long time since I've looked nice, and like we're going to an event, and like I don't typically go to these types of events with him because he doesn't allow me to. So I wanted to like just put on a little mascara and like wear a nice like outfit. And we were like halfway to the event, and this was in like we were driving down from we were driving from LA to San Diego, and he was like, why the fuck you got to do all that? Why do you feel like you need to make your makeup and you need to dress like a hoe? And all I had on was like, I think I had like a skirt and some tights and some docs, and but whatever. Um and he was just like, why do you feel like you need to look like that? Why do you need to look good for? And I'm like, he's like, you just want all the attention, huh? And I was like, what? I don't fucking care about attention. Like, I just want to look good for myself, but also like you're always talking about how I represent you, so like why the fuck is it such a problem for me to look nice? And he would always talk shit about how he wants me to be like so obsessed with him and always posting about him and always posting his music and da 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 da. And I'm like, like I would try to do that, but like he's like, you don't even like, why do you need to even be at in these spaces, or like why do you need to be in these um like why do you need any attention in these spaces when you have no reason to, you don't even do anything. And I'm like, oh, like I thought you wanted me to help promote your music. I thought you wanted me to help get the word out to people. Like what? Like, but also don't try to fucking tell me like, he would try to make it seem like, oh, like I'm not talented or anything. And I am talented in my own fucking right. First to fuck off. If I really, really fucking wanted to, I can go make fucking music too. If I really fucking wanted to, I can go fucking, I can do whatever the fuck I want to do, right? And it became like a whole thing. Like there wasn't a time in which like we'd go out in public in a social setting in which he didn't make me feel like shit beforehand. Like that's the easiest way I can put it. Or he wouldn't like there wasn't a time in which we were going out to a social setting and he wasn't making me feel like shit at least halfway through the night. That's how it always was. And now I understand because in a narcissist's mind, they cannot let any of the attention not be on them. And obviously me as his partner, as his girlfriend, the attention isn't always going to be just on him, you know, because I'm with him. I need to be behind him, not beside him. And that's how he felt like I should have been. And I'm just, even though I allowed a lot of this shit to happen and allowed a lot of the manipulation to happen, I ain't no weak ass bitch. I ain't no bitch that's just gonna stand behind you and just let you do your thing and not do something of my own, like, or just not let my own light shine. Like, I'm not that type of bitch, bro. I'm not that type of person. I am not that type of woman. I'm either gonna stand beside you and we're both gonna fucking shine, or you need to move the fuck on if you're so threatened by me. Like, just to even think about that, like, yo, like, he was so threatened by the fact that, like, I had so much potential to be such an amazing fucking person. And because I just naturally attracted people, like, not in a romantic sense, but like people just, like, I'll have to, like, I might sound very like self-centered when I say this, but I just have a natural attraction to people. Like, people understand the energy that I exude when I'm able to exude the true, genuine self that I have within me. And I've learned that. And because of that, he naturally, like, he saw that natural ability I had and would exploit on that and, like, try to tear me down. And it's just insane to me that, like, how much in a narcissist fucking mind, like, how they can even, how complex that shit is. Like, I don't even got the energy to give a fuck enough to manipulate someone, let alone try to control the narrative in their mind and project and make up all of the shit that he makes up. Like, it was so exhausting. So exhausting to deal with his paranoia and deal with, like, the projection that he would put onto me about what other people's opinions were, or these made up opinions that he's getting in his mind. I don't think anyone understands how draining that was on me, like, how much it took a toll on me. I can't imagine how badly it drained him to constantly feel like people are talking shit about you, or feel like people are trying to destroy you. Like, his whole thing, because his whole ego is based off of his music, right? And his rap career. And because he felt like everyone was trying to tear his career down, he felt like he needed to control everything that I would do and everything that I would say and everything that, the way that I was perceived. And it had gotten to the point where, like, I don't understand why, if, so, like, eventually he would obviously stop, like, posting me, and, like, he would keep our relationship a secret because he was cheating. And I'm just like, I would say things like, how would you know that they're even talking about me when you're fucking around with, like, 2 other Asian bitches? You've been cheating on me with, like, all these other girls. Like, what do you fucking mean? Like, why would they be talking about me? Because I speak to no one, I do nothing, I go nowhere. Like, I'm not allowed to do anything because you don't allow me to. And it would just be super crazy. Like, I don't know how to explain the projection that he would just force upon me. Like, he projected his own insecurities onto me, make me believe that like, all of these paranoid thoughts that he had were true. And it would get to the point of, like, yo, like it was crazy actually. Some of the few times that I did actually go out with my friends. And here's the thing, it's not like he like if it was a night in which like I would like to go out with my friends, it's not necessarily that he would directly stop me from it. Um, but he would do things like he would take my debit card and like I wouldn't be able to use my own money. Like he would take the card and like shit like that. And like how am I supposed to go out if I don't have money? Like it's my money. Like I'm the one that's working for this money, but I couldn't even use it. I like there was never a time in which I even had my fucking debit card because it was always with him. Like that's how bad shit would get. Like I think people also understand at this point like domestic violence isn't just physical violence. Like it's obviously mental, emotional, financial or economical abuse. And it was like in this situation it was just everything. Like I was being abused in every fucking way I you could fucking imagine. Like the physical part may not have always been a thing, but the fact that it ever happened was more than enough. Like, and I would say, I can't even, this sounds so terrible to say, but I'm like, I feel pretty grateful that it wasn't always like, that it wasn't terribly physical. Like, it wasn't like he was beating me down, but we're pushing each other. There's holes in the wall. Um, I'm getting bruised up. He's throwing shit at me. He's, you know, like there were times where he would just pinch me to the point where I would bruise up and like literally I'd have fucking like he would pinch me so hard that I'd be bruising and bleeding. Like shit like that. Like I guess I always perceived domestic violence and abuse as just literally getting your fucking ass beat, black eyes and all this shit, like someone literally beating your ass down. Like that's what I thought. And it's not the case. You know what I mean? Like that's not always the case. Like there were times where, you know, he would literally beat me with like a bag of chips or some shit. Like it sounds kind of it's not funny. Domestic violence is not funny. He would fucking hit me with chairs or like there was even a time where like I haven't even gotten into like the very physical shit that he's done. Like and the times that the police were involved and I never called the police on him because he would always say to me like if you call the cops if anyone calls the cops on a black man that's a threat to his life. And you know I strongly do feel an empathy, like I do understand that, I understand that very much. Like I and he would use that as a manipulation tactic in his abuse to me to scare me and force me to never call for help when I was in danger or when I was harmed. And I never did. Like anytime the cops were called, it was never because of me dialing 911. It was always because someone overheard things, someone around me heard things and called 911. So after like a police incident that happened where he got very physical with me and essentially like it was basically an entire day of arguing. He showed up at my job and he threw my dogs through the receptionist window and my job called the police on him. And I really had no choice, you know, like I'm kind of in this predicament. Um, and later that day, I asked my family to take me to go get my stuff so I can get my dogs and be done with him. And the whole thing turned into a physical altercation. I didn't want to call the police again because of the fear that he kind of set in my brain. And so when I got there, like I had the key to the door, the outer door, and the inner door. I didn't have a key to. So I'm like asking him to just open the door so I can just get my stuff and go. Like, I don't even want to argue. I don't want to talk. I just want to get my things and go. And rather than him actually letting me in, he just kept locking the door. And then at one point, he's just like, I just want to talk and you can get your stuff and that's it. And he's like, just come inside. Don't let anyone else come in. And I'm like, no, like, I don't feel safe being in there with you alone. Like, I just want to, like, just leave me, like, just let me get my stuff and go. Like, I don't want to talk about this with you. Like, I'm tired of this. Like, I'm over it. And he, eventually, like, I'm trying to get into the house, and like I'm just rattling on the doorknob, like, because I can't unlock it because I don't have a key. And he opens the door, he comes out of the door, and he pushes me, and like he pushes me down a whole flight of stairs, and I go straight out the freaking outer door, and there's like a screen door, and like so I go flying down the fucking stairs, and I go through the fucking door, and I fall like and hit my head on the cement, and like and this like the whole like after I fell and went through the door, like I like blacked out, and like this whole rest of the recollection is like my mom's point of view. She's standing outside and all she sees is like me flying out the fucking door and like my head smacking against the pavement a few times, and like it was just like she just saw red and like started flipping the fuck out. And I will forever be indebted to my mother for many reasons, but especially this time because like she fought for me. Like I couldn't imagine being my mom in this situation and watching your fucking baby girl getting pushed out the fucking door and smacking her shit against the fucking concrete. And like my mom went crazy, bro. Like him and my mom got into like a physical thing. Like my mom literally went to fucking jail for me that night because of the situation. Like that shit was wild, bro. And the stupidest part is like that wasn't even the last straw for me. Like that wasn't even it for me. And like I couldn't imagine being her, bro. I would do the same fucking thing that my mom did. So I'm never mad at my mom for that. Like I'm never mad at her for that. And she had everybody in fucking county ready to beat his ass though. And like that was insane. That was insane. And yeah. Like he tried to just have control over everything in every way he possibly could. And you know, he would try to make it, I mean, in my point of view, he would try to like give me a little bit of freedom sometimes just so that he can prove that he can take that away from me at any moment, right? Like how I said, I was only ever allowed to go out a few times, and that would be with Juju, or a couple of times with like my best friend. And what's crazy is like a few times where he saw me out with like my best friend, like there was like two, maybe three times where we saw him out while we were at a few bars, and he would literally walk right past me like he didn't even fucking know me and say nothing. And I'd tell my best friend, I'd be like, bitch, that was literally my fucking boyfriend. And she's like, are you fucking serious, bitch? She's like, I didn't even recognize his ass. And I was like, no, that's him. Because mind you, him and my best friend never even met. Like, even when they was getting into it, like, they never even met at that point. And she's like, bitch, why the fuck would he just walk past you like he don't even know you? I'm like, I don't know. That's just how he is. Like, even early in the relationship, like, he did the same thing. And I don't know why. Like I don't think I'd ever understand that other than the fact that he felt ashamed of me, and like that would like feed into my insecurities more and make me feel like, damn, like I'm not even worthy of him to be proud of me or to even say nothing to me in public, even though, bro, we literally fucking live together. I'm your whole ass girlfriend. And there would be small things that he would do like that you wouldn't even think of, that you wouldn't even think were just manipulation tactics to make me feel less of myself and to manipulate me to not think that I'm worthy of love or worthy of someone to be proud of me, like to be like happy to be with me. It'd be small shit like that. And you would never think that. You would never, like, no one in their right fucking mind is gonna think, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this small thing, like not talk to my girlfriend when I see her out in public with her friends because I want her to feel like shit. And that would like ruin my whole fucking night because I'm like, then I'm overthinking and now I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Like, am I wrong for being out with my friends and while he's also out with his friends? Because here's the other fucking thing. He would be out basically every fucking night with his friends. And he would just be like, oh yeah, like, you know, I just have to be out. I have to be seen because that's the only way that people are going to know me. Like, that's how I socialize. That's how I network with my music and da 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 da. And I'm like, I would accept that. I would think that's acceptable. I would think that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he does need to do that. And you don't need to be in the nightclubs for that. At least I don't think. And he would just always tell me how, like, you don't understand what it's like to be pursuing your dreams full time. You don't do shit. None of the stuff that you're passionate about, you don't even do. And I'm like, well, I mean, tell me where I even have the time or capacity to do what I love when I work a full-time job and part-time, I would occasionally work a part-time job. And also, I am battling a lot of depression and manipulation from you. And also, like, I never got to grieve the loss of my dad. And, like, on top of losing my dad, like, I was losing my relationship with my family because he was driving a major rift between me and my family. But also, my family, there were other issues that we were working through after my dad passed away. But even then, like, he would exploit on the fact that my family was falling apart because my dad passed away. And there were times where, like, I didn't even see my family for months or let alone speak to them. And he would tell me, like, if they fucking cared about you so much, or they're always talking about how I'm abusing you and that I'm holding you hostage, how come they never call? How come they never check on you? How come they never try to see if you're okay? And it's like, I understand it. Like, I understand why they wouldn't, because they were afraid to call. They were afraid to check on me. They were afraid that it would put me in more danger because they would call. And either way, I get it. Like, yeah, they could have done more, but they did as much as they could and what they felt like was a safe distance for themselves. And I thought by me staying with him as long as I did, that it would keep my family safer. And like, who wouldn't be fucking scared of that? Like, who wouldn't fucking, when you're that manipulated by someone, like, anything that they would say that was frightening, like, you would believe it, right? Like, you would believe that shit. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like it takes a lot to really realize certain manipulation tactics. Like, I used to shame myself for not, like, I would feel like I should have had the common sense to know that he was manipulating me or that he was doing those things to me. But sometimes when you grow up in a place that doesn't really give you the ability to think for yourself and be yourself, like it's hard to go out in the world and just learn those things, right? Like, or just it doesn't come naturally. Or again, like I was using a lot of these relationships to escape like what was really going on with me. I'd always struggled with a lot of mental health issues at a very young age. And I went unhealed for so long. And to this day, like I still struggle with breaking down where, why I make certain choices that I make, or where I should be more cautious and more aware of what is going on around me. And accepting the fact that obviously like I don't control what anyone else is doing or like what their choices are. But understanding that I have control over what I choose to do and what I choose to accept in my life. And you know, I understand that I understand and I empathize with the fact that he was probably going through a lot, right? Like, to say the least. Like, we neither of us were in a good headspace, and there is no excuse for our either of our behaviors because we were both toxic. Like, it wasn't just him. I was I wasn't quite as terrible as him, but obviously like there were a lot of toxic tendencies that I had, and like I just needed to wake up to the reality of what my life really was. And like, y'all ever just sit in a situation, like, y'all ever just sit and look at your life and be like, this is not what I want? Like, this is not the life I envision for myself. And like, every day I would wake up and think that. Every day I woke up to him, I would think that. And I used to feel like I was more in danger when he was like towards the end of our relationship, like the last year or so of our relationship, he really spiraled out of control in a really manic state of mind. Now the physical abuse wasn't happening as often, because I feel like it was mostly because like he had me so wrapped around his fingers that like I would just do little to nothing to cause conflict. Like, I would walk on eggshells constantly to avoid having conflict and issues. That way, like, we would fight less. That way he wouldn't put his hands on me. That way I could avoid certain arguments and fights. And it's not to say that we didn't argue still, like, um we still argued often, you know? But when you are in a situation like that, you start to figure out the things that trigger the person. And I almost, like, I started to feel like I was being just as much of a manipulator as he was, because I actually, so we all know like there's a fight or flight response, and like there's also a fawn response, right? And I would always go into a fawn response because I was afraid to fight. Because I knew physically, like, I could never defend myself against him. And I would go into a fawn response, which is more of like a people pleasing response. So I had to learn to navigate around the things that I knew would trigger him to become abusive. And because I would do that, I was able to keep myself almost like treading water. Like I just learned to tread water because there were always waves, always. But I could never control the waves because that was out of my control. He was creating those waves himself. And I would just have to tread those waters as best I could, and I would learn to adapt to whatever behaviors I knew could keep me safe. And it's crazy. Like, I guess I never really had that realization until now. Like, that was truly probably like the best metaphorical way I could even explain it. Like, and to unbreak that cycle and to unbreak that behavior from me, like, took a really long time. Like, I feel like I still do it. Like, I still feel like I still have those tendencies to respond in a fawn manner. And like, it sucks because after that relationship that ended in like 2021, and like, so like towards the end of that relationship, it was very like, I was really scared because eventually like his cheating stopped, but I was scared because then it would mean like his all of his attention and interest would then be directed to me. And I thought it would put me in more danger because he didn't have, like, there wasn't that extra buffer where he could escape to. And so any like anger or tension was just focused strictly on me. And I also was afraid because he was very manic in those moments, because his paranoia became so much worse. Like, he started to believe that famous people were after him. And like, I don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to laugh at all. But his paranoia was really bad to where like he felt like everything was a subliminal towards him. People who were like, he felt like famous people, celebrities were like shading him and shading me and like doing some like devilish things to him. And like, he started to think that he was a resurrected Jesus. And it was bad. Like, it was really bad. Like, there were nights where I couldn't sleep because he thought people were putting spells on me, and like, he would literally um he would literally force me to drive around all night, so that, because if he would say like, if we fell asleep, they were gonna come and get us. And it was really fucking bad. And that's kind of where like I started to feel super fed up with shit, because it's like, if it's not one thing, it's another, like, it was, if it wasn't the physical and the mental and emotional abuse, like, it was other mental abuse and other emotional abuse, and like, it was really bad. I had so many nights where I wasn't sleeping, and like, I'd have to go to work the next day, or like, it was so bad that like, there was a night where like he forced me to like to drive around all night, and I ended up getting into a car accident because of it, because I was so fucking tired. Like, I was so fucking tired. And that went on for like days sometimes. And like, towards the end of that relationship, like, I just started to feel really bad for him. Like, I'm like, like, he really needs mental help. Like, bad. Really, really badly. He was so good at manipulating though. Like, um one of the legal situations that happened, he had to have like a mental evaluation, and he was able to like figure out ways to manipulate the person who was doing the evaluation on him, and convince them that he was sane. And clearly he wasn't. Like, clearly he wasn't. And a lot of the reason that like I couldn't talk to other people was not just because he was controlling all of my social media and everything that I was doing, my text messages, all that shit. It was also because like, he literally would convince me that like, if I spoke to anyone about what was going on, or like, if I told people, if I talked to anyone about what was going on, he he's like, it's gonna fuck up my rap career. Like, you're literally chasing away all of my fan base, and like, you're fucking up my whole thing. And he's like, everyone's talking about all the shit that you're talking about to your friends. And I'm like, I wouldn't have to talk shit if you were treating me like a fucking decent human being. And like, it was so bad. It was so bad. Like, I was scared to tell anyone what was going on because he had me so convinced that like I was destroying his career. He had me so convinced. It was crazy. Whoa. And it got to the point where like he convinced me that I was the reason his career never took off, and that I was the reason that, like, me telling my friends or telling my family how he was being abusive to me, that was what was destroying his career, rather than just like not abusing me. That sounds crazy. This is not funny whatsoever, but I gotta laugh at my trauma sometimes. Rather than just not abusing me, he just felt like I should just not be telling people that he's abusing me so it doesn't ruin his career. Um, but like, it was just so insane to me. And I just felt like at the end of it, like, he only stayed because, like, the only reason he stopped cheating or he stopped behaving the way that he did and like stopped being abusive to me was simply um because he felt like there wasn't anyone else in the world that would accept him and go through the shit that I went through with him and would be accepting of the way he treated me. Like, cuz those behaviors don't change just because it's a new person. You know what I mean? Like, unless you actually put in the work to heal yourself and stop being a fucking abusive person, like, which I should have known because I see the patterns in like how he treats me and like the way he would treat his old friends or like the people that he would get into it with. Like, he constantly would have a falling out with his friends, or there's always someone, like, he was always wrapped in some drama, like always wrapped in something, because he would always think that people were talking about him or doing things like behind his back. And um obviously, like, that's some mental illnesses that he needs to work through. But something I wanted to also talk about was like, I learned some, like, I was doing some research last year about what they call a drama triangle. I'll actually insert some like pictures of what that is. And essentially, the drama triangle is you are either a persecutor, a rescuer, or a victim. Persecutors, the problem dominates and like blames and like tears down people or the other person. A rescuer is like, oh, poor you, pain reliever, like, fears not being needed, so like they try to make themselves relevant and like be a savior in the situation. And the victim is always like, oh, poor me, like, I feel powerless, like, there's nothing like I can do, like, I have, like, basically, we all know what a victim is. And we have to, once we build our secure attachment style, like, we move into the empowerment dynamic where instead of a victim, we become creators. Like, we own the power to choose and respond to. So, in order to get us out of the drama triangle, instead of being victims, we become creators who focus on like the power that we have to choose and how we respond to situations and other people's actions, because we don't have control over what they choose to do and how they choose to react, but we have control over ourselves. And instead of being a persecutor and like tearing someone down, we become a challenger, and that calls forth learning and growth and provokes action and conscious, constructive words and action things, I guess. It basically, when you become a challenger, you want people to essentially, you want to challenge the thoughts that they already currently have. You want them, you do it in a way that motivates them to want to change. or even yourself. The fuck? And instead of being a rescuer or a savior, you become a coach. You encourage and support and assist them in becoming the full, in reaching their full potential. And this is like a philosophy that like I have tried my best to live by. And, I feel like it's very hard to kind of change. Um, well, obviously, like it's obviously hard to change learned behaviors, right? I have a tendency to be such a savior to those around me because I always look at people for the potential that I can see in them because I'm someone who, like, I feel like there's ever growing opportunities. Like, you're constantly in evolution. Like, that's my philosophy, and that's the way I choose to live and view life. And I have to remember that not everyone sees things that same way. And like, I feel like this, even in like this summer, like I feel like I've gotten close and befriended a lot of people who don't even see things the same way that I do. Like, they don't even give a shit what I'm saying on my podcast. They don't even fucking listen. And that's okay too. But I'm not offended by that. I'm offended by the fact that you don't, like, I get offended when people don't see things the same way that I see things, right? Like, they don't see themselves as someone who can have endless opportunities to grow and endless opportunities for evolution. And like, it kind of like hurts me because like I that's when I start to like jump into like this savior mode, and like I want to just save them from themselves and save them from like this dark road that they could go down, when in reality there is so much more potential for life to get better. You are in control of all of that. And instead of me trying to save them, I need to be more encouraging and like just coach them through that and assist them. And it's not because like I want people to change for me or for the sake of like the relationship or the friendship that I have with them, but I just want you to be the best version of yourself for yourself. And I get so wrapped up in that, especially when I first start off in a new friendship or a new relationship. Um, and instead of me being that savior, like, I need to just completely stay out of that trauma triangle. And to relay this back to like my abusive relationship, like like in the trauma triangle, you don't always just become that. Like, you're never just that one. Like, you're never just like a savior. You're never just a victim. You're never just a persecutor. Like, you literally become every single part of this triangle. And like, he would try to become, like, he would constantly victimize himself and make him seem like he was constantly under scrutiny by the public. Oh my God. I laugh not because like I'm trying to clown him, but sometimes it just sounds like clownery. Like, I just like how stupid I would believe all of these things when, like, now that I've seen so much more of the world, like, I'm like, there's so much else out there. Like, no one's worried about you like that fucking much. And 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 I used to say to myself, like, for someone to feel that attacked by the world, you have to have such a big ego, and you have to be so full of yourself to think that you're that relevant and that important to so many people's lives. And I still stand by that. I still stand by that shit because that's crazy. Like, to think that like people who may not even know who the fuck you are, to think that you mean that much to them that they need to come and attack you in some spiritual way is crazy. And after a while, like, I just got so sick of that shit. Like, I it's crazy to say that I didn't leave that relationship just because of the abuse. I left because I was so sick of constantly walking on eggshells and treading water and feeling like I I just couldn't, because, you know, I am obviously glad that the physical abuse stopped, because it helped me see the difference between like it just helped me have the clarity I needed to realize that it's not just the abuse that is bad about this relationship. Like, it's literally everything. There is no compatibility between us. This person needs mental fucking help. Like, it's not just because he was abusive to me. It's just simply because he is manic as fuck. Like, it just, there was no good in that relationship whatsoever. And I just, what truly helped me get my ass up out of that relationship was like the last year of it I spent in therapy. I secretly went to therapy because I was afraid that he would judge me for going to therapy, and I was also afraid that he would feel like I was going to therapy to just um talk shit about him and make him seem like the bad guy, and then he would then try to say that, yeah, I bet your therapist is talking to someone in my fan base that's ruining my fucking career. And like, I was afraid to tell him I was going to therapy. I don't think I ever told him, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think I ever told him that I went to therapy. But obviously, my therapist was like, you're in a fucking abusive relationship. You need to leave. So I went to therapy for about the last year of that relationship. And that's what really helped me build the courage to finally like leave. Because I was finally able to um start to distinguish and like see that I was um that he was manipulating me, that I I was being gaslit constantly, and that my perception of a situation wasn't crazy, like that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't the one that was insane. I was logical in how, like, I was right in how I felt. I was validated in how like, I was absolutely valid in how I fucking felt and how he was making me feel. And I will never forget how there were times in the end where I started to really stand up for myself, and I stopped doing like, I stopped reacting in the fawn response, and um I started reacting more in a way of like defending myself and standing on my own fucking boundaries and standing up for my fucking self and standing up for my feelings, and doing that without getting overly emotional, and doing that in a way that kept me logical was so hard when you're constantly being manipulated, because they will do every little thing. That they learn to push your buttons in the most emotional fucking ways, and then when you're trying to stand up for yourself, they make it harder. And that was the most difficult thing, was like trying to stand up for myself without being emotional about it, so that he would understand that you need to fucking respect me. You need to fucking respect how I feel and how I'm fucking standing up for myself. And it got to the point where um he said to me one time, he was like, what man got you so tough and so, standing on your shit, or trying to what man got you feeling like you're just the shit. And I was like, and that was obviously a manipulation tactic. That was him literally trying to manipulate me to, because like I said, he would always try to like convince me that like people were saying I was cheating on him, or that like there's always another man in the situation, when I would try to like, that was just always what he would say. And when I was finally able to stand up for myself, he just wanted to try to put me down again by saying, what man got you feeling like that? Thinking that in order for me to be a strong fucking woman, I needed a man to fucking do that, which was crazy. And that's what, it kind of gets me worked up still, because when I think about it, and in the moment, I remember me saying, why would you feel like it has to be a man that taught me to stand up for myself? Maybe I just feel like I'm fucking valid and I'm fucking right in how I feel, and I'm finally able to stand up for myself. Like, what makes you think it was a man in the first place? And that was that was like that was a major turning point for me in seeing my value and redefining myself and understanding that I am worthy of love and that my feelings are fucking real. They are fucking valid. And it's so funny to me, like that was a prime example of men, like that showed his insecurities so much, because you're so insecure and so afraid that there's another man that can compare and do better than you, that when a woman is strong and standing on her shit, you feel like it has to be a man behind it. And that also shows how disrespectful he is about women and how much he hates women. Like, bro, if you must really think that women are not strong at all. It just shows insecurity to me, and it screams that. And like going through all that shit with my ex, going through all that shit with my abuser has taught me that I will not stand for certain shit. Like I was in a recent, like it wasn't even that recent, but I was in a situation and they essentially brought up a he said she said scenario, and I was just like, yeah, nah, like I'm good. Like I completely I shut down, and I was just like, yeah, I'm good on this situation. Anytime someone like brings up he said she said shit, and instead of having a conversation with me in the proper fucking way, like I literally just want to be done with you. Like I don't want that in my life at all. I dealt with the he said she said bullshit for too fucking long with my abuser, and it was all because he was fucking psycho. Like he literally was making things up in his mind and paranoid for no fucking reason. And I refuse to tolerate shit like that. If someone doesn't know how to address shit with me in the proper fucking ways, like I refuse to deal with it. I refuse to deal with it. And I have my ex to thank for that. And I don't say that sarcastically, because learning from that relationship, like as terrible as it is that I had to go through what I went through, I learned that I'm not tolerating certain shit from motherfuckers no more. Like I'm not tolerating certain things from people anymore, because I know my value, I know my worth. And that's just shit I just don't want to put up with. You know, like I will give him the credit of not cheating in the end, or admitting to all of the, well, he didn't even admit to everything. I found things out on my own, and I knew things. I wasn't fucking that stupid. But I'll give him the credit of like admitting to some of the cheating that he did and admitting to some of the wrongs that he's done to me, but it doesn't justify all the shit he put me through. And I started to see him differently in the end, and I just started to see him as like he was not, like I stayed with him to the point where like I just no longer, like I stayed with him until the point like I built up so much spite and so much resentment towards him that I found everything that he did just an ick. Like I was just so disgusted with him in the end that that was the only way that I could leave, because I was so wrapped up in this whole thing. And like I had to, like I'm so tired of, like I know I have that tendency to hyperfixate on things, and I'm tired of staying in a relationship or in a friendship up until I take him off this pedestal, and I have so much spite and like resentment for them that I just can't stand the thought of them anymore. And I don't want to do that anymore. Like I'm tired of loving someone until I can't. Whether it's a friendship, a relationship, whatever. Like I'm my next thing that I'm working on is to learn to let go when the first sign of incompatibility in my life. And like these situations that I've been through, like it's really taught me that, because lately I've been going through a lot of shit with a lot of friendships and realizing how misaligned those friendships were. And I opened up myself to like these people, and like I allowed them to hurt me in ways that I never should have let that happen, because I should have known better, right? Like I tell myself like I should have known better. And then I try to give myself grace because I'm like, you did the best you could. And I have to understand that I've literally been a ghost for the last essentially 10 years of my life because of everything that I was going through. And, because even leaving that relationship, it didn't just mean like I was going to snap back into my old self and I was just going to be the same old me. And like, it took me, it's been what, 3 years now since I've been out that relationship. And I'm just starting to finally like become myself again. And it took so long because I was so distracted and drowning myself in everyone else's problems after I left my own, and never really sitting there and like figuring out who I was and like what's going to make me happy and what's going to bring out the best versions of me. And like finally getting to that breaking point was like I always say, like that breakup last year, like that really put me exactly where I needed to be. And like, I'm so grateful for it. Like, that was, it's pretty unfortunate because, I feel like in a lot of ways, my recent ex was a decent guy. Like, he was a good guy. But, unfortunately, he had to be just a part of a broken part of me. And us falling apart was exactly what I needed to finally snap out of it. Because it was kind of like he showed me that like there was I was capable of being in love and having love that was genuinely because of me. Like he genuinely could love me for me in many ways, but it was only still to an extent, obviously. Um, but he showed me that like it's possible to have somewhat of a normal love. Like, and he showed me that it helped, like he just showed me it was possible for me to have a healthier relationship. And there were obviously a lot of toxic tendencies within that relationship itself, which is why it ended. But that relationship showed me that it's possible. Like I can be loved in the ways that I can be loved in different ways that were not entirely bad for me. And I think that it that ending was the perfect thing I needed to just, I don't know, I guess basically go into my villain arc and become this beautiful person that I've always been. And like, I guess this is the part I get emotional because like who I am now has like always been inside of me. And like, I've hidden her away for so long, for so many fucking years. And I hope that like everything that I go through and like my stories and me sharing my experiences, I hope that it like teaches other people, younger people, that like it's possible to be yourself and like love yourself for who you are. And I don't want them to go through what I went through because you shouldn't have to. You know what I mean? Like I shouldn't have had to go through all that, but I did, and I am who I am for it. And it's changed me drastically, for sure. And I can never make up for all the years spent on on all of those lessons that I've learned in my life. And I'm continuing to progress and change, and like, you know, finally getting back into the social world has really made a major difference for me. It's been really difficult because I'm still learning lessons, and I'm still learning, but I'm learning these lessons faster. I'm learning them quicker and realizing that I need to let go sooner when things just don't align for me. And it's really unfortunate because, like, you start to build these bonds and connections with people. Um, and for me personally, like, I build bonds and connections with people. And then when I realize that our values and our who we are to the core just do not align, um, it breaks my heart that I have to like walk away. And I'm referring to friendships as well, like, and realizing that not everyone from my past, like old friends, they're not all great friends. You know what I mean? Like, I can cherish what we once had at one point in time, but doesn't mean that they're like who they are aligns with me. And it's very difficult to navigate that at an older age, but it just really sucks that like there's certain things that I feel like are important in any relationship, in any connection, and people don't see that as important, or they don't reciprocate that. And I guess this is more of being misunderstood. Um, so I'd say yes, domestic violence has made my life a lot more challenging, of course, but it's kind of brought me back to exactly who I was supposed to be, and it's made me who I am now, unfortunately. I didn't Obviously I would never choose to go through that. If I went back in time, even as far back as 19, and I were to choose, if I got the chance to see the future and to see how I would live out my 20s, and I got to choose whether the life that I had or a different life, obviously I would never choose to go through domestic violence or to be stalked. But you know, I may be an entirely different person than who I am now. I probably wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be making this podcast. Um, but I can only value and cherish who I am and appreciate those who have stuck beside me even through all of this. And, you know, I have to take everything I've learned as reasons to walk away sooner. And looking back, I feel like everything is just full circle. Like everything is relatable in some way. Like, I don't need to take that abusive relationship as just ways to like things to keep an eye out for in abusive in relationships and in my love life. Like, no, those are things that I need to also keep an eye out for in friendships and family relationships. Like, I can't I can't put myself in the victim mindset and just think like that, oh, like poor me, like things are always happening to me. Like, I need to be in a place where I know I have the choice to leave. I know I have the choice to just end the suffering for myself. And those are resources that like that's information that I've found in the resources from the domestic violence facilities in my local areas. And obviously, like, if you use these resources that I've talked about, like the hotline and like the chat system and the texting and like everything, They're going to help you get out of that victim mindset, help you understand that you still have the power to choose what happens to you. And it's very unfortunate that like there's so many people who continue to stay in that cycle because they're not getting the resources that they need to change that. And that's literally all I want to do with this podcast is I want to get information out there and share my experiences and be raw, be real about what I've experienced and gone through, but also give you the information you need to help yourself because there's always possibility to be better. And, unfortunately, I also know a lot of people personally who still go through this cycle, and it hurts me to watch that. And someone very close to me, like, continues to go through that. And I've literally turned to this person and said, like, you've seen everything that I've been through. You went through worse than me. But, like, it's not to compare trauma, but it's literally, I'm trying to show you and prove to you, like, you can go through all this shit and still persevere if you choose to. You're continuing to choose to stay because whatever reason, maybe this fantasy of like having a perfect family, but does the fantasy mean more to you than your own happiness? I will never sacrifice my own joy and happiness for anyone again. Like, I will never settle for less than what I feel like I deserve ever again. And I know I said in like the episode with Jesucita that I was matching energy for a little bit, or that's a little toxic of me. I'm growing, okay? I'm not matching energy no more. That shit is dead, okay? If you ain't about the life that I want, like, don't fucking bother me no more. Like, I'm so tired of it. I'm getting too old for it. It's draining, okay? I got goals to achieve. I got dreams to chase, all right? And that goes not just romantically. That goes for friendships too, okay? But yeah, I just want everyone to be aware of the tendencies and the signs of manipulation, gaslighting, and like abuse. And these can come in all different forms. And I know in these last couple of episodes I've been talking more about how it affects you in your romantic life. And I have more to come, but hopefully I want to talk more about how it affects you in your friendships, how it affects you in your family life, because all of these things, the way that we allow others to, the things that we accept are based on how we were brought up and how we saw things growing up in our youth and those formative years in our life. Like, we were seeing that this is how it was acceptable to be treated in one way or another, whether we were being treated that way or we saw the most important individuals in our lives be treated that way or treat each other that way. And so we were forming these opinions and forming these incorrect thoughts about how we should value ourselves. And it's important that we try to change that. And it's never too late to change that. Like, I feel so grateful that I've been meeting more people who just feel so drawn to like share their stories with me, and like I feel like I've given off this like natural aura of like comfortability, and like people just tend to draw to me and like share their experiences. And I'm so grateful that like I'm so grateful to be me, because I'm happy that like who I am exudes that comfortability and exudes that authenticity and that love and that compassion for other people, and they can feel it. I know that I'm doing what is right for me, what is right for the people that I want to help and encourage to be their highest selves. And yeah. So again, I got some more shit for you guys coming up this month. Some really great topics that I want to discuss more on. And I just want to thank everyone for subscribing. Like, the encouraging words that y'all give me, and I love getting those like surprise messages about how motivating my podcast has been to you guys, and like it honestly keeps me going. I'm so driven and passionate about what direction I'm trying to take this podcast that like I could care less what the numbers look like. I'm doing this because I know it's what's right for me. I know it's what's right for other people who have suffered of silence. And it doesn't have to be because of domestic violence. I'm ready to be vocal about the things that we're scared to talk about. I'm ready to change the way we allow society to view us, and have these difficult topics to discuss, and like have this conversation, because it just means so much to me that I can take my pain and like turn it into something beautiful. And I want to encourage other people to do the same. So again, I want to make sure y'all got the resources you need for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Make sure, if you are suffering through domestic violence, whether it's in a romantic relationship, friendship, roommate, family, there is 24/7 help. Okay, like you can call 1-800-799-7233. If you don't feel comfortable calling, you can text the word begin to 88788. And you can also chat on their website. It is thehotline.org. I will have all of that information in the show notes. So sorry for a longer episode. There are just so many thoughts I wanted to get off my chest. I hope that you guys enjoy this episode, and I will see y'all next week on another special episode of Suffering of Silence. You guys know to find me on TikTok and Instagram at Suffering of Silence Pod. We are obviously on all streaming platforms, so make sure you tune in, listen, subscribe, and leave some reviews, because that does help me. It not only just helps me, but it helps get the word out to those people who might need to find this podcast, who might need to find this information. So continue to do that, please, and share if you can. It's literally free to listen. It's literally free to share and support your girl. Like, man, I appreciate y'all so much, and thank you so much for constantly being a subscriber. I look forward to the rest of the journey that we'll be taking together. So it's Sab yet again, signing off.